this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to attend. Um, and so it's not to take up your entire night. We're going to get started now. Um, all right, I think someone else will be admitting. So, welcome. My name is Malika Bachi Lockhart. I am the Assistant Director of Campus Activities and Multicultural Affairs on the Ammerman campus. And welcome to tonight's event, From Whence We Came, Cultural Food and Candid Conversations. Um, this this series was created to kind of mimic how history and traditions are passed from generation to generation. Traditionally, in the Black cultures, is when you were helping someone else out in the kitchen or over Sunday dinner, and just a lot of exchange of information over food, the universal language. Um, but what's happening is that we have more of these going on, right? The phone. So I don't know about you, but when PC, I call it pre-COVID days, um, when I would go around and watch people eat, I, no, I'm not strange like that. I'm a people observer. Um, I saw how people would just they wouldn't sit and talk. They would sit and eat and be on their phone. So that I believe that this is what's distracting and taking substituting the conversations that we used to have, and there's danger in that because traditions and history is getting lost, and if they get lost and you're not getting it from the true source, then someone can come around and just change it to how they would like it. One of my girlfriends, Carol Gordon, who runs a museum, the traveling museum, she says, who gets to tell the story, the lion or the prey? The lion, right? So, but we need to hear the history from everyone. We need to hear from the history from those that lived it. And with that in mind, we started this series. And also, I say this every night. I mean, every time we have this, I shared that this one young man said at a town hall meeting we had at the college that he was not proud to be. He says an African American. He says, "Well, what do we have to be proud of?" And again, that struck me so hard that it moved me. Like there has to be something different. We have to continue this history, and like that just means he doesn't know his history. Because once you know the history, you understand it is a very very rich history. This is the only culture that has gone through the institution of slavery that was so brutal for so long, and yet we are here. Yet we survive. Yet we thrive. So to me that says a whole lot. That's a whole lot to be proud of. But I can talk for days, and this is not about me. So I'm going to introduce the speaker of today's event. The title for today's event is "The Role of Entertainment in Building Resiliency Through Turbulent Times." Um, and Mr. Chip Williford is going to present. He is a videographer, filmmaker, documentarian, family historian, and also a writer of prose, poetry, and short stories. He is the director and co-host of Poetry Street, the AAECF entertainment coordinator, and technical director and visual artist at the Suffolk Theater, which started as a result of an intern position as he completed a AAS degree in television production at Suffolk County Community College, Ammerman campus, and served as VP of Service of the ASEAN chapter of Phi Theta Kappa, and he was grateful for every minute of it. He is the owner of Chip Wilford Productions, He produced and filmed the YouTube series Poetry Street on the Road and is featured on YouTube on America. Please learn from the scars of history. He produced and co directed Bohemia, Then and Now, an educational historical documentary that was internationally recognized and also viewed by Bohemian American citizens, along with the Bohemian ambassador at the National Hall Bohemia Embassy in New York City, following a full house premiere and red carpet reception at the Bohemia Historical Society Museum. And um, so that's his bio. But beyond the bio, this is a fantastic human being. He has so many chapters in his life, and humble. He has such a humble spirit. And all of the things that you have succeeded in doing, I know people that have completed half as much and have the head that wouldn't fit into this screen. But Chip, you remain humble, and we appreciate you. We appreciate your energy, and I thank you for coming back to Suffolk County Community College and sharing your gifts with us. So, without further ado, let's hear from Chip Wilford.
Oh, wow. Malika, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And thank you, Gail, and thank you, Chrissy, for putting this wonderful program together. You know, Black history is celebrated every month in my life because I'm Black every single day. So I don't celebrate it just for 1 month. I celebrate it all year round, and I encourage you to do the same. Before we get started, I wanted to acknowledge that we are on stolen land in America. So, with that acknowledgement, I would like to uh, answer the call to talk to you about the importance of entertainment in building resilience um, during turbulent times. It is very important that we know from whence we came. We came from kings and queens. Although we're no longer in Africa, we still share a lot of traditions with our family. We share our tradition of telling stories, of playing games, of recipes with our family members and our community and our friends. And right now, we're in this community on Zoom. And you're in your home, and I'm in my home, and we're just going to have a good time. Now, I do ask that this event be a conversation. Uh, there's a chat button below. So if you have something to say and you would like to express your feelings about something I say or something someone else says on this call, please put it in the chat, or you can look at the reaction button. There's a icon down there for a wave of the hand, and you can use the wave of the hand in the reaction feature in the bottom to raise your hand. Okay, so as you can maybe tell or not, but I normally don't do a lot of speaking. I'm more of a poet, and I'm just going to do my best, and this is all in love, and we're in one big family. I have some videos that I put together that I would like to show you. But before I do, I just want to also say that Black History Month and Black history is important to me. It's important because I'm a father, a grandfather, and a great grandfather. And I want to make sure that generations to come can understand from whence they came. And I see my friend Maurice Allen Jr. on the call, and he's my mentor in regards to genealogy. And he's really given me a lot of encouragement and tools to find my family roots and find my family tree. Now, I know that part of this presentation It's supposed to be regarding food. Now, I'm not a cook, and I'm not a singer either. So you would never, ever, ever get a song from me or a meal from me. However, I will not let you down. I have someone that's going to handle that segment of that topic of this presentation. My wonderful husband, John James, and my sister-in-law, Jenny, and my brother-in-law, Jeremy. And I'm going to ask them to talk about food. And we need to unmute them. Let's see. Okay. I got Jenny unmuted, Jeremy unmuted, and where is John? There you are. And
Thank
now
you.
John is unmuted. Thank you. Take it away.
Okay, I'll start. Good evening, everyone. I'll jump right in. One of the really important things about food is what the number one thing is sustenance. You need it to live, you need it to survive. But we also have a palate and we have taste buds, and most of us have vision and we have smell. So the next important thing about food is the enjoyment of it. And so when it comes to the preparation of food, traditionally, it's an act of love. When you put together a meal for your family, for your friends, you are putting in it your creativity, your heart, because you want them to enjoy it and you want them to be healthy. So in the tradition of family and cooking, I think that's the number one tenet that we should remember, because we eat when we're hungry. We don't have to remember that part. But the part about it being an act of love is the most important part to me. And that's one of the things that I've learned from the tradition of cooking with my family.
So I'll jump in after that. I'm Jennifer. Good to be with all of you. So Jeremy touched up on the crucial part of it.
Jennifer's frozen.
Yeah, she froze.
Trust me, guys, when these three get in the kitchen, they cook everything, and they're amazing cooks. John, are you available?
Yeah, I'll try to fill in while we're waiting for Jennifer, because the way that we planned the segment is that Jennifer would go next and I would follow up. But yes, we are a culinary family. We love the tradition of food. Our mom is a great cook. It started with her and our grandmother, her mother that preceded her. And so we learned some of those family recipes. And then we also incorporated healthier ingredients as we progressed. My mother started cooking meatless greens as we were growing up. She started to experiment with other things because she was health conscious, and she was introducing us to this lifestyle so that we could enjoy, as Jeremy said, from a palate perspective, our food, but also be introduced to a healthier version of what we know as soul food. I mean, she would make the best sweet potato pies, and she would make them, like she would make 12 sweet potato pies, and they would be lined up along the dining room table and then the buffet or wherever they could fit, because we'd have so many visitors that would come, extended family and friends, church members, and partake of what she would make, if it was some left, because there is 8 of us siblings, and we would devour those sweet potato pies. But as we've grown older, we've also learned to make healthier version of sweet potato pies, because in the Black community, we have specific health issues, and we have to be cognizant of what we're putting into our bodies and maintaining the traditions at the same time. So it's a balancing act that's real precious. And Jeremy, I think Jeremy makes better sweet potato pies than I do. So, but what I want to talk about is dispelling negative stereotypes associated with some of the foods that we eat, and specifically a food that I recognize as protest fruit, watermelon. And watermelon goes back to Africa. And after the Emancipation Proclamation, Blacks were not only eating watermelon, but they were growing and selling it, and it became big business. And so, of course, along with that came freedom, economic freedom. And then, of course, whites, mainly in the South, saw this as a threat and constructed a smear campaign to create negative stereotypes associated with Blacks eating watermelon so that they could stop this business. That effort was to stop the business. So you see these images of Blacks eating watermelons with their lips over the watermelon. Now, how many barbecues have you been to where you've seen somebody eat watermelon like that? Never. Doesn't happen. So you have these myths, and they still exist today. Hence, you know, some of us in our community not wanting to eat watermelon and fried chicken in public. But, you know, let's go back and find out why this is. Even Disney and some of their cartoons have images of Blacks eating watermelon in that way that we've seen before that's very negative. And they wanted to associate watermelon with being shiftless and lazy when we were actually engaged in businesses that were thriving. And watermelon is not just delicious, it's nutritious. 92% water, it's hydrating, it replenishes electrolytes, it's high in vitamin C. And, you know, what more do you want? High in fiber as well. So I wanted to just touch on that a little bit. Do we have Jennifer back? Okay, Jennifer.
So I don't know exactly what I missed. I tried to get
Oh
back
my God.
really quickly, but it seems that they both touched on, pardon? It seems that they both touched on like the historical aspects of the food importance in families. And John offered us some agricultural information about commerce and how our particular resilience is always going to be based in the truth of our experience. The resilience is fed by the experience that we have and us living the truth of what those experiences have built within us as families, as people, and as cultures. So quickly, I just want to touch on the family dynamics that we have in a family of 5 boys and 3 girls with a mom who was super invested in having all of her children have cultural competency around food. All of the men cook as well as the women, and some cook better than others. I won't get into that because I'm not going to start any sibling fights, which can be fun. But I love the fact that she established standard, and standard is its own form of resilience. When Black people hold standards that we built into our own lives and our own cultures and our own families and our friend circles, it is often seen as being rebellious or being strong or being militant. And when all that we are doing is protecting the culture that has been passed to us from the people that we care about the most. And food is such a prominent example of how that manifests in our lives. And I encourage everyone to expand your food competency wherever you can find it. If it's going into other cultural food aspects and finding similarities or seeking out to find differences, expand your cultural competency around food and how food has been a huge symbol of Black resilience. And enjoy yourselves along the way. Make some new friends, drink some more wine.
Eat
and
watermelon.
Eat some watermelon and expand that palate. Put some pepper on that watermelon or some pink sea salt.
Cut it up in different shapes.
Dip it in some olive oil, throw it on the grill, expand that food base.
Pickle the rinds.
And continue to build that resistance.
Balsamic and goat cheese.
Continue to build that resistance that we have around flavor and the palate and the spiciness and the depth and the deliciousness that is Black people. Resilience is beautiful. It is our lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, Jeremy, and thank you so much, John. And trust me, guys, these are some amazing, amazing, amazing cooks. And I'm just so happy that they're in my family. So I would like to show you a video regarding some athletes that have made a difference in building resilience through turbulent times. I'm going to try to share my screen and play this for you. So just bear with me a second. Okay. Take two. Okay, here we go.
Black universities were historically where many of the world's greatest athletes were developed and where talented female athletes were nurtured. At Tennessee State, Coach Ed Temple took the concept to a new level with the Tennessee Tiger Bells.
He always said that first you were a lady, second you were a scholar, third a Tiger Bell, in that order.
Temple's star pupil came along in the summer of 1960. She was a tall, attractive sprinter who pulled female athletes from the margins of sports to center stage. Her name was Wilma Rudolph.
Wilma was graceful in her running. She reminded me of Jesse Owens. Fluid stride, beautiful form, and she had that smile. She had that pleasing personality.
There had been great female athletes before her, but Wilma was the first to achieve international acclaim. Rudolph became known as the fastest woman alive, but as a child had obstacles to overcome.
I was very small. I think it was at the age of 3 or 4. I had polio, and there was a special type shoe that I had to wear at this age. I was carried back and forth to Nashville, which is about 45 miles from my hometown, about twice a week for different treatments. It gives you something to push for. It gives you determination. It makes you want to do it. It's building from within.
100,000 crowd the Olympic Stadium in Rome for the elaborate ceremony that opened the 17th modern Olympiad.
With a bronze medal from the 56 Olympics already in tow, Rudolph would better that at the 1960 Games in Rome. Wilma's celebrity skyrocketed when she brought home gold medals in the 100, 200, and the 400-meter relay. Rudolph used the visibility she gained in track to participate in a movement that continued to gain momentum. She began by sensitizing her hometown of Clarksville, Tennessee, and refused to participate in a parade in her honor unless it was integrated.
She knew that this was not right and that she was not going to be in a parade, but a parade was segregated.
And that was the first time that they had an integrated parade in Clarksville. First time they had a big integrated banquet. And I never will forget the mayor got up and he talked about piano. He said, you got white keys and you got black keys. But in order to get good harmony, you got to play the white keys and the black keys. Both of them got to be playing together in order to get good music. And that set the tone for integration in Clarksville.
Before the Olympics, there was a furor in this country over a threatened boycott by Negro athletes. Then most of them decided that participation in the Olympics would further the cause of civil rights in this country and abroad. The Negro athletes wear buttons reading Olympic Project for Human Rights. There were some boos in the stadium last night. ABC sports editor Howard Cosell spoke to Tommy Smith after he accepted his gold medal.
Tommy, would you explain to the people of America exactly what you did and why you did it?
First of all, Howard, I would like to say I'm very happy to have won the gold medal here in Mexico City. The right glove that I wore on my right hand signified the power within Black America. The left glove, my teammate John Carlos wore on his left hand, made in art, my right hand to his left hand, also signified Black unity. The scarf that was worn around my neck signified Blackness. John Carlos and me wore socks, black socks without shoes, to also signify our poverty.
And this is the motivation, the symbolism of what you did. Now, do you think you represented all Black athletes in doing this?
I can say I represented Black America. I'm very proud to be a Black man, as I said earlier, and also to have won the gold medal. And this, I thought, that I could represent my people by letting them know that I'm proud.
As an athlete, people adored you in a superficial manner. It was through the fact that you pleased them as you exhibited this physical force, or even your mental ability on the field. As a man, they didn't pay very much attention to you. The irony is that when I played for 80,000 people in Cleveland Stadium, they would cheer. And then I couldn't go to a particular restaurant because I was a Black man. So that cheering went out the window. I was dealing with why I couldn't go into that restaurant. You see, I didn't want to integrate, I just wanted my rights.
Here's to interview young people here. They'd like to be President of the United States, Secretary of State, Ambassador to the United Nations. If you'd like to, don't give it up. You have to give it up. Because in spite of everything, I want you to remember one thing. You can do anything that you want to do, if you want to do it bad enough.
Destined to be a leader, Russell was named player coach of the Celtics in 1966, the first Black head coach ever in the history of the NBA. When Ali was stripped of his title, he became more than a sports hero. He became a legend. Ali was embraced as a courageous dissenter who symbolized the conflicts that divided the country.
It doesn't matter whether you agree with his being a Muslim or not, or whether you agree with his stand against the war or not. It was just that he defined himself and said, I'm not going to let white people define me or the white establishment define me. He defined himself on a huge stage at a time when Black people were very interested in reshaping and remolding themselves as a people.
When I was asked how did I feel about the unrest in the U.S. and what was happening, the mistreatment of Blacks, I would always say that I grew up with it, I understand it, I know what it is, I feel something has to be done with it. And who's to say where the battlefield is, if it's on the athletic field, or if it is in politics, something needs to be changed and somebody has to make a statement.
So, who's making a statement today? I want to open the floor and listen to some of you who have some comments. I know that there are a lot of people in the sports industry that are making statements.
I actually have a statement.
Yes.
So, remember I was actually speaking with one of my Black colleagues about like the NFL and the other like professional sports organizations, and he said to him, it is the new cotton field, is what he said. And that I was a little confused, and I was more surprised, but I was confused. I'm like, the new cotton field? He's like, yeah, because they're pretty much slaves to the establishments above them, because they get them into these contracts that pretty much just discredit them for everything they've done. I never heard about it up until he told me, and I was like, wow, I didn't think about that.
Joe Louis and Jackie Robinson had to sign a 3-year contract not to retaliate for any adverse actions any of the white patrons or white players did to them. And I found that to be very, very disheartening. Anyone else have a comment?
Well, I'll comment about what Anthony just said. I've heard that sentiment often about athletes, and I think that the answer depends on the disposition of the athlete, because athletes have given Black people a level of access in this country that we wouldn't have without those opportunities. The amount of money. Simply, how could, without even discussing much of it, how can you hold that point of view when, because of LeBron James, the NBA opened up entire stadiums for people to have access to voting? Slaves don't have that kind of power. It's just a misnomer. It's a false statement based on something that he feels about athletes, but it simply isn't true.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Absolutely not true. And also, I just want to mention that there are a lot of athletes now that are doing some positive things, like LeBron James,
the whole WNBA.
Yes, the whole WNBA. Wow, I have a list here, and I just Steph Curry, nothing but net. LeBron James with the Wheels for Education. Steph Curry, Nothing But Nets campaign. He's bringing nets to millions of people who are suffering from malaria. And every 3-point shot that he makes, he donates 3 bed nets to these people. And there are a lot of people that are doing some positive things, using their entertainment and athlete status to help other people. And I think that that is definitely the role of entertainers in building resilience. And we as Black people, we're always in turbulent time. There is also a need that we need to talk about, and that is the way that people outside of our race view us, stereotypes, and how important it is that the right message is being portrayed on television and the media. And I want to ask my friend Colleen if she would talk about the stereotypes. And I also have a video, I could play that after Colleen speaks. Okay. Whoops. Oh, I'm sorry, Colleen, you need to unmute.
Okay, great. Good evening. So you'd like me to speak about the stereotypes?
Yes, or you know what? Let me play the video and then we'll come back to you, Colleen. Is that okay?
Certainly.
All right, great. And I am going to, 1 second. Okay, here we go.
My concern is that we are not represented, that we're not being seen, that the proper images are not being presented. Simply that.
I had one of these disc recorders. So I use that machine. I studied the show Amos and Andy from my recordings And when I went to the audition, I read all the parts.
You see, it's funny. We had to imitate a white person, imitating a black person in order to get on the Amos and Andy show. They taught us how to be black, how to mispronounce words and whatnot. Hey, who the hell needs it? You know what I'm saying?
Outraged by the white laugh track and the show's humor based on black stereotypes, the NAACP waged an 11-year battle to get the program off the air. In 1966, CBS finally bowed to pressure. In fact, you are not seeing an excerpt from Amos and Andy because since that year, CBS has refused to let any of the shows out of its vaults.
Oh, here we are. And you started down there, and Bill and I'll show you how it's done.
But Amos and Andy's huge success on television paved the way for more roles for blacks. There was the long-running Beulah series in which Hattie McDaniel, Ethel Waters, and Louise Beavers all played. Eddie Anderson was Rochester on the Jack Benny Show.
What's the matter, boss? You don't look good.
And Amanda Randolph played Louise in Make Room for Daddy. But their common bond was this: they were all servants.
The establishment has a concept of what a black should be. And in order for us, and the average black, when he reads a script to get a job in radio or television, he knows the black lifestyle that's demanded of him. And he tries to play that part. And we pass on these negative concepts to our youth. It's not the actors that's hurting, it's the people that's hurting.
Move on to the next thing. And the next thing is definitely, how do we correct ourselves? How do we stop examining the fact that each time any one of us comes out of the box, that it is total representation for the entire race? That's a trap. Most of the shows that were on at that time really didn't have anything to do with reality. And we were just another one of those shows. I don't think anyone, when the show was publicized, I don't think any of the logos dealt with the fact that we were going to examine the Black community. We were not. We made a half-hour situation comedy about a mother and a child who are Black.
We are much more advanced in our society than we are on television at this particular time. I don't know why, because at one time there was much more representation of that on television, but right after Roots, it seemed to have dropped.
I don't care if they are maids or budget directors or whatever, as long as we have the alternative images being presented, and that is what's wrong. We do not see the other side. We only see those basic images coming back at us.
It's not only damaging to the actors, it's damaging to the Black people, and it's damaging to the nation. America's looking bad.
If someone came from a country that knew nothing about integration of Blacks or the whole racial equality of this country, and they tried to find out what it was about from television, they would get a misrepresentation of what we really are. We are much more advanced in our society.
But for our children, they must have something to relate to. They can't relate to anything on TV.
We want to deal with human subjects because we are a people of human substance and of great pride and dignity. And these are the qualities that we want to bring to the screen.
Eventually, we're going to have to come to terms that we have to do for ourselves. I mean, we've been toying with that and playing with that for years, and it has never really become a reality. It's going to have to become a reality.
We're going to take our feet and walk by the box offices of those movie studios that fail to recognize the contributions of Black folk in America, because the dollar will talk louder than anything else. We're going to be heard from. We're going to raise enough hell until things get better. And we're going to show them by God they can't spend our money if they won't treat us with respect. That's our job, and I invite you to join us in getting that job done.
All right, so as you know, that video is a long time ago, but I remember as a child watching television with my siblings, and or even, as a child watching television, and anytime a Black person comes on TV, you yell, "Hey, a Black person on TV, a Black person on TV," and everyone come running, and we'd be so excited just to see someone of Black or someone of color on the television screen, and I remember when Julia first came out, and it was amazing to see this beautiful Black woman on television. So I'm going to ask Colleen to speak a little bit about that, but also on the resilience that Black people are. Oh, there you are. All right, there you are, Colleen. Okay, Colleen.
Okay,
Good.
great.
Thank you.
Good evening again. Okay, so just to recap some of what we just heard about in terms of stereotyping Black people, people of color. I think that one of the reasons that white America has been so comfortable in choosing to stereotype us is because they were not in our infrastructure. They didn't have access to how our families were structured or how our communication was established, the kinds of slang, the comfort levels, the foods that we ate. I mean, it's very specific to the Black culture, and so they had a perspective, I believe, on Black culture, and that's as far as they went, and they maintained that. And it was also very safe to keep Black people kind of pigeonholed because it created a ceiling, and that always allowed them to have the upper hand and more power. And what we see is what we replicate and what we move towards. So if we're not seeing ourselves in a productive, powerful role, if we don't see ourselves in those positions, the likelihood is we will only go as far as our best teacher. Oftentimes, it takes incredible people to break that ceiling and move us forward. So then we had the Cosby Show, we had the Color Purple, those kinds of programs that were forerunners in showing us positive representations, or even representations where we were fighting back. We were in pain, we fell, and we got up. And it has just continued ever since. And so now we have the first Black vice president. We've had the first Black president. So as much as we continue to be in turbulent times, we are making advances. Not as fast as we would like to see, but one foot in front of the other, and we are moving forward. And we're moving forward rapidly in a short period of time when you consider the amount of time that we've been suppressed. So when Chip asked me to speak about the role entertainment plays in building resiliency in turbulent times, I thought, well, what is entertainment? Entertainment used to be, a play, a movie, a book, sports, but now the news has become entertainment. And resiliency is perseverance during hard times, falling down, getting up, just keeping your eyes on the prize, that no matter what gets in front of you, you do not let the noise distract you. And turbulent times, when have people of color not been in turbulent times? So there are different degrees of the level of turbulence, but we are constantly in turbulence. And so what I think that entertainment plays a huge role in creating hope in us, because it's a snapshot. Whatever you're looking at, whether it's poetry, whether it's a piece of sculpture that represents something chaotic, that is something turbulent that has been captured in time. You look at that. Everyone is going to read that differently, but it's going to speak to you in some way. And oftentimes, these kinds of expressions of art are impactful, and it empowers us to take another step forward. I want to mention that Morgan Freeman played Nelson Mandela in the 2009 film Invictus. And Morgan Freeman, I'm sorry, Nelson Mandela, he was an anti-apartheid activist in South Africa. He was imprisoned for his activism and remained in a South African jail for 27 years. 27 years. I mean, imagine being locked up in a hole for 27 years with no vision of when you're getting out, if you're getting out. And he found a piece of poetry that empowered him. So you want to talk about entertainment and resilience in turbulent times? That is it right there. That is a big chunk. This man imprisoned found a piece of art that allowed him to continue to hope. He didn't give up. When he gets released, he then becomes president of the country. Are you kidding? That is tremendous. I had the honor of meeting Nelson Mandela twice. And humble man. Humble. And he had the resilience. It was part of the fabric of his being. And he was not reluctant to say what helped to strengthen him during all those years. He recited this poem, and it helped to fuel him. During Martin Luther King's most impactful time, the march, he was one of the activists. He was one of the most prominent activists. He was not the only one, but he was the most prominent one that we know of. And during that time, there were artists. Now, when we talk about entertainment, I'm not just talking about actors or singers or sports players. I'm thinking about sculptors. I'm thinking about dancers. I'm thinking about people who are doing print ads and writing newspaper articles. I mean, that's all part of what we feed on that helps to shape our perspective of the world we live in and of ourselves. And so during that time, there were three artists that came to mind that were impactful. Nina Simone, in a piece that she sang called Mississippi Goddam. There was Sam Cooke, Change Gonna Come, and Bob Dylan, Blowing in the Wind. And I thought, well, should I mention Bob Dylan because he's not a person of color? It doesn't matter. He was a servant leader. You know, he is one of those people who puts himself on the front line. He speaks about things that are counter the norm, and he has no problem doing so. And so people rally around the strength in these individuals that are showing resilience that helps to empower us. It's a snowball effect. And our most exciting, momentous time was 2020. Painful. What a time we had in 2020. Unprecedented. But Black Lives Matter, that charged movements around the globe. Never before seen. Just amazing. Entertainment fuels resilience. That is the proof of it right there. And one of the artists or two of the artists that were impactful during Black Lives Matter, John Batiste, writing "We Are the Chosen Ones," and Alicia Keys. So entertainment is key. We need to pay attention to it. We need to add to it if we have something to say. But entertainment is absolutely impactful in fueling resilience in turbulent times.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Colleen.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh my gosh, I love you so much.
Oh, thank you.
You know, and I think of songs like "We Will Survive" and you know, stuff like that, and Jenny Burton's make it on broken pieces. On broken pieces. I remember when my mom passed away, I played that song over and over and over and over again to give me some type of peace. But it was wonderful that I had something that I can put on that made me feel better. And a lot of times that's what we do. You mentioned poetry, and I want to bring back Jeremy, and he's going to talk about one of his favorite poets. Jeremy.
All right. So yes, one of the things that inspired me so much about Langston Hughes is his resiliency. You know, we know so much about him, but it seems like so little at the same time. You know, because he died in I think it was 67, but we know that he was very pivotal in the Harlem Renaissance of the 1920s. But like I said, he was resilient. He was brilliant. And because he was resilient, the Renaissance is going on right now with us today. It didn't end in the 20s. He lived to 67. He carried that Renaissance into the civil rights movement. He was really pivotal for other entertainers during his time. He encouraged them to celebrate and embrace their Blackness and use it for inspiration. He actually wrote The Negro Artisan and the Negro Artist and the Racial Mountain. And it became kind of the manifesto for Black artists during that time for inspiration and guidance. The two things, I want to talk about two things real quick about Langston Hughes that inspired me to talk about him. One was because he was really intelligent about who he was, where he was as a Black person in America. He was invited to the Soviet Union in the 30s to make a film with other Black people about Black life, or back then they said Negro life in America. So the Soviets wanted to use this as propaganda against the United States for their own good, because they knew that the United States was very racist towards these African people. But Langston also knew that being heard, being able to explain it with his own words was very important. So he took this task and he went to the Soviet Union. But it just so happened that the United States, it could have been done purposefully or on purpose. The United States recognized the Soviet Union, and they put a US embassy in Moscow. So they canceled the film. I don't think that it's a knock against any of those people who went, that they didn't make the film, but it just goes to show how big his voice was in the 1930s, that he was invited to this other country to express and explain what life was like for African Americans. And then another thing that stood out to me was he was accused of being a communist by our government. You know, the McCarthyism. They always go after our great leaders and accuse them of something. And the funny thing to me is they give us democracy as a concept, and then they don't allow us to fully participate in democracy. Hey, we're a democratic country, but you're a slave. Hey, we're a democratic country, but you're 3/5 a person. Hey, we're a democratic country, but you're in a, but now we have Reconstruction and we're trying to hold you back. And so even today, they're trying to change the laws for voting so that we cannot participate in democracy. And so if we have a hint of wanting to participate, and I think this is very important now, of wanting to participate in some other political ideology, whether it be communism or socialism, is like a huge knock against us when we haven't been welcomed into democracy as it is. So it's very hypocritical for anybody to take that stance against Black people until we can fully participate in democracy. So back to Langston Hughes, when he was accused of it, his brilliant poetry came out in his answer to the government. It was supposedly prose, but to me, his statement was poetic, it was strong, and it was extremely resilient. I'm not going to quote it, I'm going to read it so that you can hear exactly how he said it. But I loved his answer. He said, I never read the theoretical books of socialism or communism, or the Democratic or Republican parties for that matter. And so my interest in whatever may be considered political has been non-theoretical, non-sectarian, and largely emotional, and born out of my own need to find some way of thinking about this whole problem of myself. I interpret it as, I don't need to read your books to know you. I know you based on how you treat me in the position that I'm in. And he said that he didn't read it. I think he did. But you can't deny that I know them by how they treat me. And that was a very powerful and I think poetic statement that he made to the government when they accused him of being a communist. And then the last thing I want to talk about is my favorite poem he wrote. And it has to do with, you know, he encouraged people to dream and to hope, but he also had this, like James Baldwin, this real sense of where I am right now and how to get to the meat of the position that he was in as a Black person. And so he wrote a poem. I learned it years ago and I'm going to share it with you and then I'll be done. It says that justice is a blind goddess, is a thing to which we Black are wise. A bandage hides two festering sores, which once perhaps were eyes. But justice isn't blind. It sees us and it robs us of it. Langston knew that a long time ago, and we know it today.
Wow, thank you so much, Jeremy. Just awesome, man. Martin Luther King, Langston Hughes, James Baldwin, Mahalia Jackson, were all just political and monumental people in our lives. I just want to play a little bit of Langston Hughes. And I think I'm gonna get a little bit better at this screen sharing, but we'll see.
That magnificent Black bard who is now passed on, Langston Hughes. One day he wrote a poem entitled Mother to Son. The mother didn't always have a grammar right, but she uttered words of great symbolic profundity. Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it. Boards torn up, places with no carpet on the floor, bare. But all the time, I's been a climbing on and reaching landings and turning corners and sometimes going in the dark, but ain't been no light. So boy, don't you stop now. Don't you set out on the steps cause you find it's kind of hard, but I's still going, boy. I's still climbing. Life for me ain't been no crystal stair. Well, life for none of us has been a crystal stair. We must keep moving. We must keep going. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving.
In June of 1963, Medgar Evers, a World War II veteran, Mississippi Field Secretary for the NAACP, and prominent civil rights activist, was fatally shot on his own front lawn. 3 months later, 4 Black girls, the youngest of which was only 11 years old, died in the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, by the Ku Klux Klan. These tragedies lit a match in Nina Simone's heart, and she channeled that blazing rage into Mississippi Goddamn.
You don't have to live next to me. Just give me my equality. Everybody knows about Mississippi.
The song was revered within the Black community for its honesty, but ostracized by the music industry. Nina was banned from certain airwaves, and boxes of the record would be returned to sender, broken in two. In 1965, Nina Simone recorded a haunting version of Strange Fruit, which was originally a poem written by Abel Miracle and sung by Billie Holiday in 1939. While Strange Fruit wasn't her original work, the way Nina's voice wraps around such a powerful and illustrative depiction of lynchings of Black people made an impression that has captivated for decades.
Blood on the knees, Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze.
I can't be a pessimist because I'm alive. To be a pessimist means that you read human life. It's academic matter. So I'm forced to be an optimist. I'm forced to believe we can survive. But the Negro in this country, the future of the Negro in this country is precisely as bright or as dark as the future of the country. It is entirely up to the American people and our representatives. It is entirely up to the American people whether or not they're going to face and deal with and embrace this stranger whom they maligned so long. What white people have to do is try to find out in their own hearts why it was necessary to have a nigger in the first place. Because I'm not a nigger, I'm a man. But if you think I'm a nigger, it means you need it. The question you gotta ask yourself, the white population of this country is gonna ask itself, north and south, because it's one country, and for a Negro, there's no difference in the north and the south. It's just a difference in the way they castrate you. But the fact of the castration is the American fact. If I left a nigger here, and you invented it, you the white people invented it, and you gotta find out why.
Now, that's a question. Why? Okay, moving on. Does anyone want to say anything? Please raise your hand if anyone wants to jump in the conversation and say something. Okay. So moving on, I just want to talk about some other people that have used their celebrity or to help make an impact on our movement. I would like to ask Jennifer James if she would please speak about the person that she wants to present.
Hello again, everyone. Thank you for sharing everything you've been sharing. This really feels great. So I'm going to try to share a screen too. And then I'm going to read something I wrote about this person. And before I share the screen or tell who the person is, I described the person as a giant. And giant has a meaning that we all understand. By definition, it's a noun. It describes something large. And for something to be large, you basically think of things compared to it as having to be small. But I want to bring another aspect of giant, and I'm not the first to do this. A giant is someone that makes everything around them bigger. And that's what this person does and how they inspire what I believe is resiliency. So a giant making history as a teller of Black history, a giant of a filmmaker, a builder of blockbusters, an achiever of earthquake magnitude accomplishments back to back, and does not seem to be slowing down. Ava DuVernay, she more than embodies, she defines what moving and shaking actually is. By choosing to focus her meticulous storytelling of monumental Black American historical events, she teaches as she creates. Hollywood remade, stylized with the beauty of Blackness, with confrontation, with the cutting starkness of truth and justice. She did it with Selma. She did it with the 13th. She did it with When They See Us. She has made the craft of filmmaking a pinnacle of resilience. Naturally, her next steps will illuminate how one cements a legacy by bringing innumerable people along for their own legacy building journeys, challenging an industry often criticized for its exclusion. She moves into TV and film spaces and makes space for the brilliance of an expanded community of creators. Ava DuVernay's resiliency is especially evident in how broadly she extends the reach of a filmmaker. Launching Array Now, which is an independent film distribution company focused on centering the work of African Americans. Opening the Amanda Theater, an independent screening space for burgeoning creators of short films, feature films, and limited series. Also with the implementation of Array Crew, which is an organization that credentials marginalized people and ensures their place in every department of film and TV production that exists behind the camera. Holding and commanding space for others, typically and unjustly overlooked, is the ultimate example of resilience. So I salute Ava DuVernay and everything that she does to expand how film is presented and how power is built through commerce, through history making, through more cultural competency, because she's bringing along dozens, hundreds, and thousands of people into creative spaces. She's a giant.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. And there are other directors. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you, Jeremy. And now I would like to bring John on, and he's going to talk about another great person. John, you just need to unmute.
Okay, hello again, everybody. So good to be here with you all this evening to share about Black excellence and our achievements and in our history. It's very rich, in spite of what we have to endure even today. I just never understood how a man who died for good could not have a day that would be set aside for his recognition, because it should never be just because some could not see the dreams as clear as he. On the evening of April 4th, 1968, Stephen Hardaway Morris was 18 years old. In the back seat of a car on his way home to Detroit from the School of the Blind in Lansing, Michigan, when the news broke on the radio. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had been assassinated at the Lorraine Hotel in Memphis, Tennessee. It's been documented that his driver immediately cut the radio off and they drove in silence, and in shock and grief, tears rolled down Stevie's face. 5 days later, he flew to Atlanta to attend Dr. Martin Luther King's funeral. This wasn't just devastating and traumatic. It was a call to action. So the campaign began, and it was set in motion, and Stevie began to host and curate multiple concerts and events throughout the years to make Martin Luther King's birthday, along with others, he didn't do it by himself, a national holiday. I was honored in 1982 to be a part of a chorus that performed at Radio City Music Hall, along with many other performers that got to sing that happy birthday song that was introduced to the world by Stevie Wonder. That was my first step into being around that kind of activism and greatness and artistry, being Stevie Wonder himself. And then in 1983, Martin Luther King's birthday became what? A national holiday. Not in every state. Some states voted against it. But 18 years later, in 1986, from the death of Martin Luther King, Stevie Wonder did an interview with Rolling Stone magazine explaining that he had a vision of Martin Luther King's birthday becoming a national holiday. And so Martin had a dream and Stevie had a vision. And in August of 2011, the unveiling of the King Monument in Washington, D.C., where Stevie also, of course, hosted and curated a concert with multiple artists. This time I was fortunate enough to be on the stage in a more prominent role. And I remember that day so well because I remember meeting John Lewis and shaking hands and taking a photo with him. But Stevie Wonder's career is vast and endless in accolades and accomplishments. And he's in a category by himself, as far as I'm concerned. His activism and involvement regarding Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday to date, to me, is his greatest accomplishment. And I'm happy to have been there at different points in his activism, because we know that without activism, there is no change. And ironically and sadly, today we hear Stevie Wonder saying that he's moving to Ghana so that his grandchildren and his great-grandchildren can live in an environment that is safe and free. Stevie Wonder is who I'm paying tribute to today. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. That was beautiful. We're gonna end pretty soon, but I want to give my friend Maurice Allen Jr. an opportunity. He's not on camera, but he's on the phone. If he wants to speak and say something today, I would love for him to. Maurice.
Yes, I do. First of all, I'd like to say hello to my family. It is good to see you all with all 6 of my eyes. I am enjoying this. Who says we don't continue to learn? We get older each day, and I'm learning today, and I look forward to it each and every day. And this has been just that. It's been the top of the mountain for me today. When you mentioned that you were going to have this Zoom call, I said, yeah, I've got to get on. So I did okay. I got on. I'm shocked I got on. I don't know how to do the video part, but one day I'll learn that. But I did want to just thank you all for this opportunity to sit in and listen and learn. And just putting it all together, when you talked about resiliency, I'm thinking about just that bounce back. I've bounced back today just from being here with you all. I've bounced back. I've not really gone that far off during this, what we call a turbulent time. But I'm bouncing back, and you all have helped that situation very, very much today. When I think about the people that had to bounce back so that we could be here today, and that's each of our ancestors. They had to bounce back. They had to go through turbulent times, and their resiliency is obvious because we're here today. And I'm glad to be here to see you all and to share with you.
Thank you so much, Maurice. And Maurice is calling from Detroit, Michigan. And I so much appreciate him. I appreciate all of you. You know, sometimes things don't work out exactly how you plan them to work out, like today for me. However, they say that whatever doesn't kill you make you stronger. So yes. I hope it does in mine. And you know, if I'm thankful and grateful for each and every day. And I'm here because of my ancestors who bared a lot so I can have this opportunity to speak to you, or to bring people, also to bring people that can't speak to you about Black history. And we have to celebrate ourselves each and every day because there are people that we stand on their shoulders. There are people who have died and who have sacrificed so much for us to have this opportunity. And again, I like to thank Malika, I like to thank Gail and Christy and Emmerman College. And if I may, I have to say that it's because of Emmerman College that I got my degree after 30 years of being in class. I started my education journey 30 years ago in Oakland, and it took me 30 years to walk into the campus at Emmerman campus, and it was Malika that helped me fill out the paperwork. And today I'm here speaking to you, although things did not go exactly how I wanted it to go, but it went, and it went well. Thank you, my family, and thank you, Malika, and thank everyone that joined this call. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Malika.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. I just realized that my name is still looking like Finn from Campus Activities, but it's me. I'm Malika. You did an amazing job. Thank you, all of you that contributed to tonight's discussion. I think it's important that one of the things that I appreciate when I see different clips from way back, when I was younger, I'm like, oh gosh, this clip is so old. You can see the quality of the film. Why are they showing this? Why are they showing this if this is so old? But now that I'm older, I realize that that's history. It's a snapshot of history. And I encourage you all, YouTube is an amazing tool if used properly, because it has a wealth of clips from James Baldwin, from Langston Hughes, from Billie Holiday, from Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. It's an amazing tool. And it has a bunch of information that's not put in textbooks necessarily.
Right.
You know, it's hard to find places where we have a curriculum to learn about this history. And we must be diligent in learning about it before it is rewritten. In certain places in this country, they are rewriting history. They are rewriting it as though, for instance, slaves were just indentured servants. By no means. You know, it's as though people are trying to rewrite history so we don't look so bad. No, we must have an honest look at our history so that we can learn, so that we will not repeat it. However, all right, I won't go there. so that we
Actually,
not
Kes has her hand raised.
Oh, yes, Cats, please.
Yes.
Yes, I'm Kat's man. So, I'm just listening on the discussion. It's great. Everybody has some really great feedback. And I just saw the thing about Stevie Wonder and Martin and just everybody, considering giving up that was here during the real overt struggles that, we went through as people. And I'm sitting here looking at it the way I look at it. We need to get a grip as a people, because we honed in on that Martin Luther King, I have a dream concept. And, we fell flat on our faces. I think we should have focused more on his speech where he talked about how there's two Americas. And, a lot of us were talking about that in the 60s, the 50s, 40s. We're still here in 2021, is two Americas. That's the question that I think we should be answering for ourselves. And that's why these discussions that we have in these platforms, I think is so important. But we got to take the gloves off sometimes, and not be, we're celebratory, but, we got to get our hands dirty in these real conversations. But I just wanted to say that. With that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kes.
Thank you. Chip, you did an amazing job with pulling this all together and keeping your patience and your calm throughout it all. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your energy. I appreciate all of you for being here. I do understand it's a Thursday night, and there are so many other things that you can do, but you are here during this conversation, which says a lot about you. One of the things that I'd like to leave you with, two things, is if there was someone that you didn't know too much about in terms of their name mixed with activism, I encourage you to do that research. So one of the things I was thinking about when I asked Chip to do this was to make that connection with entertainment, entertainers, and history and activism. So we had our James Baldwin, we had Harry Belafonte, we had Cecily Tyson, picking up and using their platforms to bring attention to social issues. And we also have currently Kerry Washington, Janelle Monáe. There are countless other entertainers that have picked it up. And since this is the day and age of social media, maybe we can encourage and support those that are speaking up, and find a common bond. I believe that we need to unify a lot more. Speaking to that young man's point that just spoke, we need to unify more. We need to communicate more. We need to share, have conversations like this. So I appreciate you for being here to be a part of this kind of discussion and this energy. Also, my colleague, my sis, Christy Banks, she put in the chat a survey form. If you fill it out, then when it comes to that part where they ask you about your address, please, if you give us your address, we will send you an appreciation package that also includes hashtag Good Trouble mask as an appreciation in honoring our fallen civil rights icon, John Lewis. There goes to the survey again in the chat. Okay. Yes. So are there any questions, feedback from tonight? No? Okay. If you also give us your email, we will send you information about tomorrow's program, Move It to Lose It, where we have another Suffolk alumnus that will that's going to work with us to shed some calories off and have fun doing it, and give us some nutritional tips and how you can work out during the commercials, which I think is great. It works. Before you know, you're like, the commercial's over. All right, and I finished like 10 squats, So that's tomorrow at 12:30. And we have MSNBC contributor and Professor Eddie Glaude Jr., who will be joining us Monday at 9:30. And the last of this series is will be next Thursday, where we will have a former Lakers player that will be talking about his time in pro basketball and athletes and activism as well. So there's a lot. There's a lot. It's just all about celebrating. And as Brother Chip said at the beginning, we are Black beyond March, beyond February, beyond March. It's not like I turn a different hue. So we've been trying to change our language to, instead of saying Black History Month, to celebrating Black history. You know, so it's the same thing with March, which is traditionally Women's History Month. We will be saying we're celebrating women's history because it's beyond a month. So with all that said, I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. Be kind to yourselves and be safe, everyone. Thank you so much, Chip.
Thank you. Love you.
Thank you, John. What an amazing voice, Brother John.
Yes. Thank you all for joining.
Yes. Have a great night.